Hi, my name is Michelle Fitzgerald, and I'm the Training Director for the Sensar Learning Center. Most Sensar training programs involve the use of intuition. We specialize in helping people develop their intuition, but probably more importantly on we teach people how to take intuition and put it into use in highly practical and beneficial ways. So today I'm going to give you a little example of that. I'm going to show you how to use intuition to help your pets. And I'm going to tell you a story about a real situation where I was able to help one of our pets with this very technique that I'm going to teach you today. So I'll start with the story. This story involves a little dog named Katie. And Katie was a little miniature schnauzer. She, a number of years ago, passed over. But at the time, she was a spry little dog. And, prior to this exact incident, she was a spry little dog. And she developed some type of problem where it was hurting her back. And she increasingly got worse and worse and worse. She was having trouble walking, and eventually she couldn't walk at all. And my boyfriend, Katie actually belonged to my boyfriend Bob, and he was taking her very diligently to see a really excellent vet in the town that we lived in. And but the vet just couldn't figure this out. They kept on running test after test after test. Bob was spending, you know, hundreds. It started with hundreds, moving upwards to well over $1,000 on doing testing, trying to figure out what was wrong with this dog. And they just couldn't figure it out. And the dog was getting worse and worse and worse and was in really severe pain. So one day we were together and Katie was there, and the telephone rings and it's the vet, and they're once again calling to report that the latest test has come through, just not telling them anything more than what they already knew. And I could hear Bob on the phone, and they were recommending that he schedule yet another test. And I'm across the room and I'm just going like this, you know, stop, 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 hand motioning, stop, no more of this. And, you know, hang up the phone and let's handle this a different way. So he hung up the phone and I said, let me douse this for you. Dowsing is an intuitive skill that I use a lot. And it's a really easy skill to sort through huge amounts of information, to narrow down to the one little bit of important information that you really need. And I really like it for that whenever I'm facing a situation where the intuitive task is sort through a huge amount of information to get to one little, I call it needle in a haystack. Dowsing is very often the skill that I will choose. Anyway, I said, let me douse this for you. And let's start by figuring out what it is that you actually want. You want a vet that can accurately diagnose this dog. You want a vet that can do it quickly, that it's going to be very affordable for you because you've already spent all this money. They can see Katie right away. It's not too far away so that we can get there quickly and easily. Those were some of the main parameters. We like the vet. That was another one, that type of thing. So the very first thing I did is I was using at the time muscle testing, just a simple form of dowsing I call finger dowsing. And you just take your hands and you instruct your body and your subconscious mind that you're going to ask an intuitive question and you're going to get feedback. And from that gigantic information bank of all knowledge, wherever that is. And anyway, you're gonna basically ask an intuitive question. You're gonna get an intuitive answer, feedback, and you're gonna tell your body. You're gonna use your body as the readout device. You're gonna tell your body, if the answer to my question is yes, give me a really strong response. Some of you may have been to chiropractors or other doctors that use this type of muscle testing with your arm. To check medicines and vitamins and things like that. This is the exact same thing. I'm just using my fingers and I'm doing it on myself. So for me, a strong response, a yes, is a very strong response. I put my fingers together like this, and I try to pull my thumbs apart, my finger and my thumb apart. And if I can't do that easily, if it's very tense, if it's very strong, it means yes. And if it's very, very weak, when I ask a question, yes or no question, that means no. If you want to learn more about dowsing and how to do it, including a review of what I just did in writing, and there's some videos too, go to my website, the Sensar Learning Center website at sedonaportal.com. dowsing.com and go to the dowsing section, and you can take a lesson. There's a printed lesson. You can print it out on dowsing. There's several videos, and you can learn how to do what I'm doing right now. But anyway, I was going to use simple muscle testing like that. You could also use, I'll show you how to use a tool like this. This is another dowsing tool. I'll put it up here so you can see it easily. That's called an L rod. It's just a bent piece of metal, basically. Around my neck, you see a pendulum. You could also use that. And I'll even show you how you could do what I'm about to do with clairvoyance, another intuitive skill that I use a lot and I love. I'll show you how to use clairvoyance to do exactly what I'm going to do now with dowsing. But anyway, we identified what Bob was looking for in regards to helping Katie. And initially I just asked the intuitive question, is there a vet that meets these parameters, a veterinarian that meets these parameters within less than an hour's drive from where we live? It's called the Verde Valley, where I live. Sedona, Arizona is where I live, and that's in a place called the Verde Valley. And I got a very, very strong response. Yes, there is. So I grabbed the phone book. What I'm going to teach you is something called basic list dowsing. I grabbed the phone book and I just looked at the phone book, touched the phone book, and I asked another intuitive question. Is the veterinarian that meets all our parameters, is there at least one veterinarian that meets all the parameters in the local phone book? And again, I got a very, very strong yes. So I simply took the phone book and I went to the V for veterinarians, and to the columns like I'm doing right now. If you can see this little phone book, just went to the veterinarian section, and I started looking at each column on the page. There's like four or five columns actually on each page. And as I looked at each column, I just said, is the veterinarian we're hunting for in column number 1? No. How about column number 2? No. No strength in my fingers. Column number 3. And I get a yes. And so then I just start going down. I just follow my eyes down each name, just checking until I get a very strong response. Is it this vet? No. Is it this one? No. Is it this one? No. Is it this one? Yes. And you get a strong response. So I made a note of that. Are there any other veterinarians in our area that could handle the job? And I repeated the same exercise. It turned out there were 3 veterinarians that could do the job. And I looked more closely, because I wasn't looking very closely at any of the detail. I was just looking at the line item. I looked more closely, and all 3 veterinarians happened to be, they were on different pages because their names were different, but they were all in the exact same clinic up in Flagstaff, which is about a 45-minute to an hour drive from where we were living in Sedona. So we called the clinic. We were able to get an appointment immediately. We took Katie up. I believe it was the next day we took Katie up. We got ushered in. The vet came out to meet us personally. Very nice person, came out to meet us personally, took us into the room. We described a little bit about what had been going on with Katie. He was a great listener. Within just a few minutes, he thinks for a few minutes. He kind of feels Katie, takes a few measurements. And he just responds that, based on what you're telling me and the history, I think that this is what's wrong with the dog. And he said, here's the common treatment for that. And he said, now remember, I had specified that we wanted someone and a treatment, not only a doctor who could properly diagnose this dog, but to properly treat this dog, and it needed to be affordable because Bob had already spent so much money. So this vet says, here's what you typically use for this problem, if I'm right with the diagnosis. And he says, my recommendation would be that you simply use this medication. She's either going to respond or she's not. And if she doesn't, then we can go beyond there and do x-rays and all that type of thing. And he literally said, but rather than spend all that money right now, why don't we do this conservative approach and see if that works? We got the medication, went home, gave Katie the medication. Within a few days, Katie was responding wonderfully. Within less than 2 weeks, she was completely recovered after months of suffering with this condition. That vet visit that day, that doctor visit that day for her cost $40. So it was very, very affordable, and I can't remember what the medication cost, but it was very, very affordable. So that's an example of a way to, how many veterinarians are in the book, even in a small community like ours. There's like 30, 40, something like that within an hour's drive in every direction. You can find quite a few veterinarians. So that's a way to sort through a lot of information, find something that could very specifically help that animal, and it did. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of other quick ways that you could have done the same thing I did with muscle testing. You could use a dowsing rod. What you would do with this, if you can see the rod, is you'd simply point at each column and ask the rod, tell your body to cause neuromuscular responses so that when you hit the right answer, when you put your finger on the right veterinarian or on the right column that the name of the veterinarian is in, the rod is going to respond like this. This is my command when I'm using dowsing rods. When the answer is yes or I've got it right, I've put my finger on the right name, body, I want you to remove, this isn't magic, your body is doing this at an unconscious level, move the rod toward me. If the answer is no, you can either say just stay neutral, that's my shortcut technique. Some people like to say if the answer is no, move this way, like that. The other thing you could do is you could take a pendulum, like I've got around my neck here. This I wouldn't use probably for this technique, but if you prefer pendulums, this will work. And you would swing your pendulum and you'll develop a yes, my yes response. The pendulum, it's probably hard for you to see in the film, but the pendulum will move this way. My no response, the pendulum will move that way. And I could do the same thing, just touching on the different options and requesting that I get a yes answer when I'm on the right option. Lastly, you can use a clairvoyant technique. I love clairvoyance too. Dowsing and clairvoyance, well, I love all intuitive skills, all intuitive access methods, but I love clairvoyance and I'm highly clairvoyant, so I use it a lot. But here's another quick technique. You simply look at each column. I call this the pop technique. And some of you will be naturally more visually oriented than others. And you'll probably have a natural tendency for clairvoyance if you start practicing to develop your clairvoyant abilities to develop very, very quickly. So this technique would work for you. You look at each column and the command to your whole intuitive access system is going to be pop the name. Just pop the name off the page when I see the right name. And you just start looking down each column and truly you will see the right name literally pop off that page. It will stand out more than any other name on the page. You need to trust that and you need to then follow up and see is there any logic to back up that being possibly the right answer. So there are some basic quick techniques on how you can do something called list dowsing, or you could use clairvoyance to pull or extract a tiny bit of information that you need, that you badly need to help something like a suffering animal quickly using your intuitive skills. Very, very easy. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of learning the basic techniques and then practicing. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson today. I've got a part 2 story that you'll find fascinating about the same dog, about Katie. And I'm going to take a little break and I'll come back and I'll do another quick video on another health issue that came up with Katie, a different type of strategy for handling that problem and what the outcome was. But they're both really good news stories. So I hope you'll tune in and see that. And visit my website, visit this, the Sedona Sensor Learning Center, website at sedonaportal.com. Take a look at some of the wide range of courses that we offer that involve intuition. See you later.